Welcome to Lashback, everyone. Happy New Year. I'm Natalyan.
And I'm Phoebe. So, last week we were talking about New Year's resolutions. Are you still
Yeah,
following yours?
I am. And I think that we really want to hear from the listeners. If you haven't engaged so far, how far along your resolutions are you? What sort of resolutions did you have? Do you have, quitters days coming up in January, the official quitters day? So it'd be interested to see. But I think this episode we wanted to kind of continue the theme a bit more. It's early Jan now, and what does it mean to reinvent yourself? What
You.
does reinventing mean? So what's it mean to you, Phoebe?
Gosh. I mean, when you say the words reinventing yourself, I think about Madonna or like Taylor Swift. Every new album
Love
has a different hairdo or like a
Yeah,
different whole
the
kind of
physical.
a whole brand, a whole different brand.
Mm, mm.
And I've had periods in my life where I've gone through a big change and it has changed me, and that has over time of like small little incremental changes actually become quite visible in myself. Used to
Yeah.
be quite overweight when I was younger, and I went on this big thing, and I lost loads of weight, and that I think is um, the most stock version of me having reinvented myself. Other than that, it's normally been something that's a little bit more incremental. And I've kind of looked back on myself this time last year and gone, "Oh gosh, I'm
Oh,
completely
yeah.
different." What about
Yeah.
you?
Yeah. No, absolutely. Well, yeah, I mean, there's physical changes, right, as you were
Mm.
just referencing, and like in branding and musicians and artists. I mean, I've had the same hairstyle my whole life. This is what my hair does, right? But reinventing yourself can also mean, which is where I'm kind of taking it with this year, is mentally getting myself into that place where I take on my life experiences and wisdom and remold mold my priorities. I think is key, and my
Absolutely.
feeling towards myself and how I treat myself, which reflects on others, and who I prioritize in my life. I've learned that through my adulthood is, if you want to make time for someone, you make time for somebody, but you want to do what you want to do that makes you happy. So reinventing myself for me for 2025 is really in my thought process is really being about prioritization. So that may not be a physical change that someone can outwardly see, but people in my life would notice that
Yeah, they
I've
see it
really
in your
made a
behavior rather than your
yeah,
appearance. Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. I mean, I guess as you're talking, I'm thinking about, the decision to go and study again. Um,
Yeah,
which I tend to do every 10 years. I requalify in something every 10 years. It's just
yeah,
something I tend
which
to
is
have
great.
done. And that, in a way, is, I guess, I'm thinking aloud here, um, some form of desire for reinvention, or maybe to tweak our theme a little bit, a sense of building,
Fulfillment.
building on further development, like you say. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for me it's
it's an interesting
fulfillment as
one.
well. Yeah,
Fulfillment.
fulfillment's
Mm.
key for me as well. I think, okay, what am I doing? Am I really, fulfilling myself? Am I helping others enough? Adding that into my life
Authentic.
without overwhelming. Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I think for me, and we referenced this in our last episode about vision boards, and we didn't reference this, but the secret. What is the secret? Some people are aware of that, some people are not. But manifestation,
The book.
and reinventing yourself can be something big. So real big change, like literally reinvent yourself about what you do, who you are, how you are seen. But I also think that you can go into, small incremental steps that can evolve, and then you eventually, like looking at your vision board we were talking about, you go back and look at it and you think, oh,
Oh,
I've done that, and I didn't really realize that I'd kind of moved the needle on that as much as I did. So really praising yourself is a big key for me, and really acknowledging what I achieve internally, externally, with my loved ones and so forth. So I think
I think
reinvention is a important word.
yeah, it is because it suggests something massive, but actually,
Yeah.
there is something about talking about celebration, and like you last week saying, you're saying you're gonna, conquer the world, and then you get upset that you didn't conquer the world, and expectation creates suffering, which is a Buddhist term. But this
Yeah.
sense of actually celebrating the small wins as well is actually really important. Any kind of celebration releases dopamine in the brain.
Yeah.
So, like, if you do something, even if it's little, and you go, yay, I've washed up, yay, I got dressed today, you're actually supporting neurological development around good habits. So
Yeah.
it's like that atomic habits book as well. So the little things, if we can celebrate the little things, then it's easy to build upon those things, because actually our brain, it's like a brain hack. We've got the juices flowing, and it becomes easier to do it next time. You hear a lot about it in sport as well. Just the rule of thirds. Didn't we come across that? One third of your time is going to be crappy, third of the time's going to be okay, and third of the time's going to be great. So like, get up, because even if you don't feel like it, because today might be a crappy day, and that's all part of. I did that even though I didn't want to, and I didn't do very well, but I still did it. That kind of celebration is really good for our pathways, our neurological pathways, and supporting that sense of building incrementally to get somewhere. But there's also something within this about not setting goals that are unachievable. If you want the big thing, you've got to break it down to the little things, so that you're giving yourself the milestones with which to celebrate, with which to develop and build and make things easier over the long term.
Yeah, like bite-sized portions, and setting that foundation. Because if the mindset is not right, then you're not going to be able to bounce off that platform.
100%.
Right. And I think that's for me. And also going back to your point about, just getting up, like there's a lot of great books out there that I've read, from raising your vibration to having a routine of 5 a.m. every morning, which does help you. It helps me anyway. But also not feeling guilty when you think, you know what, I'm going to lay in bed today and watch movies.
I need a rest.
Yeah, because your body needs a rest, and not feeling guilty. I get that so much, about feeling guilty about not having achieved loads on a particular day, a Sunday, Saturday, or whatever day that may be. We don't have a general 9 to 5 life, you and me, but we work really hard, and I don't think we give ourselves enough grace to say we didn't do that this week, but we will possibly do it next week. And it's okay to have a day where you're feeling a little bit down, and few things have happened or not happened. Sometimes you can feel down when everything's great and you have a wonderful life and you're not complaining, because there's always someone that's got something that's going on, but it doesn't undermine your feelings, right? So I'm really trying to hold true to that. It's easier to give advice than take advice, but
to bring that,
that's what I'm trying to.
It's so easy to give advice and not take advice.
Yeah.
But it's to pull all of those strands together. We're talking about positively reinforcing and celebrating the little things. When we get tired and we allow the spiral of negativity, we reinforce that, and that becomes self-sabotage. That becomes very difficult to come back from. So we need to manage ourselves really carefully on those days where we have to rest, or maybe something doesn't go the way we expect it to. It's not problem, it's opportunity kind of thinking. And that again comes to what The Secret talks about, and the notion of manifestation. Imagine that you have it and that it has already happened, because those thoughts, literal thoughts in the brain, create behaviors that then make that thing happen. If you're it's a pillar of NLP. If you closed your eyes, try it now, listeners. Close your eyes and imagine the picture red. And now open your eyes and see that everything, you start noticing all the red. So if I allow, I think I'm talking to myself here now, because I can do big spirals of negativity, and then I open my eyes and all I can see is the things that are going wrong. But if I can just, in the smallest way, focus on the positives, I'll go out there in the world and I'll notice opportunity, and I'll be like, oh, I've seen the opportunity, I'll go for the opportunity. And I've seen it in friends, I've seen it in myself, so often when somebody's very negative, you this negativity bias notion, you're thinking negative, and all you'll see is negative. All you'll see is risks. All you'll see is things to be wary about, to be scared about. There's a lot about that, about how some news and media channels will work on that, that thing that we do in our brain. We have to combat ourselves and a lot about our society, I think, that allows us to see the positive, to see the good in other people, in ourselves, in the possibilities. Because I was talking about this the other week, our future is only possibility, can only be possibility. It hasn't happened yet. Unless, of course, we're dead cert that we're only going to notice the bad things.
And it is a way of thinking. Yeah, there is a way of thinking. I don't know if you remember this, but I lived with you once.
You did.
And I went for a period of, in London, and I went for a period of being on public transport at night, because we do a lot of late night gigs, so we travel around. And I've always been a really confident traveller, because I've lived around the world on my own in presumably safer places than other safer places, and I've always been really confident. And I had a bad experience with somebody on a tube one night, who just took a disliking to me and was really aggressive, and I'd never felt scared like that before. And for, I think it was for weeks after that, I don't know if you remember this, for weeks after that, that's all I got. And I was getting really concerned about it because I was becoming really nervous, which is completely unlike me. But so I had to really, we had a conversation about this. I had to really reset myself, and then it changed, because I've always met wonderful people when I've been traveling. That's part of the reason I love London, is jumping on a bus, jumping on a train, jumping on a tube, being really independent and meeting all these weird and wonderful people that you will never, see again. I love that. And I went through a really bad period with that. And I had to reset my mind, because you really do reflect what you give out. And if you're walking down the street anxiously, you're going to meet anxious people. Yeah, so for me, it's about that. It is. And I also think that trying to focus on the positives, if you're going through a bad period, what really helps me is writing down the things that I've done. Like I did that recently. I had a big life change. I moved. I'm single now. And I started writing down all the things I'd done this year, because I felt like I'd done nothing and felt really down on myself. And then when I wrote them out, spoke to some friends, including yourself, about that, I thought, wow, what have you done in 6 months, in 3 months, in 9 months? It's quite miraculous. Give yourself some more credit.
I've got two.
But I had to see them.
Yeah, you do. 2 thoughts. First is you've made me think about trauma and getting over illness, and we really must do an episode on that at some point. Definitely. I remember when I'd been through quite a lot, and I'll tell that story another time. And going out into the world, my body was afraid of intrusion. Really, I'd had a lot of operations, I'd had a lot of treatment, and just touching me made me feel, and I had to, like you say, reset. And the other thing I wanted to talk about was I think a friend of mine did this a couple of years ago, and I've seen it on social media since. Is that you at the beginning of the year, you pick a jar. If you're in America, it's a mason jar. And every time something good happens, you write it down on a little slip of paper and you put it in the jar.
Love it.
And then at the end of the year, you look at all the little things in the jar.
In a note.
I'm going to do
Love
that
it.
this year.
I'm going to do that.
Let's a couple of days in, but it's never too late to start.
No, of course it isn't. It doesn't have to start on the 1st. What is it? It's the 5th now. And, we're let's commit to do that. I think that's such a wonderful idea, and that's what I mean about writing things down, because you can't always see them without putting them down. And I'm very much a post-it note lover. I have post-it notes all over the place. I love them. Whoever invented them is my friend. Brilliant.
One of the richest people. We'll have to corroborate this, because this might just be hearsay. But one of the richest people in America is the family that invented the glue for post-it notes.
Really? Well, I love post-it note inventor, and I love toothpick inventor. These simple little things. We need to think of what we invent. Yeah, I love going in stationery stores. We're going off on a tangent here, but I think it's wonderful
I'm
because
not
that
allowed to
makes
go
me
into
feel better.
stationery stores unsupervised.
I would have a good night out in a stationery store.
Yeah,
I think we
same.
could
But
have a
it's
DJ and a
it's
DJ
kind of
and a
like that friend
bar.
that encourages you to have shots, isn't it? At the bar, you're not going out drinking with them again because I can't cope with it. You and me should never go to a stationery shop together.
I
Let's just
know.
make
Can you
that
imagine? Can
fact
you
right now. I
imagine?
don't think I can afford it.
Well, we'd probably be the only people in the history of all time that could spend their life savings in a stationery store. But it helps me organise my life. I love it. I should work in the stationery
Containment.
world.
It's containment.
Maybe,
Especially when you've got lots
maybe if
of
there's
things
any,
going on.
yeah. But I think it may be just a shout out to our listeners if we have any stationery brands out there that want us to promote. You know, we are lovers of stationery, so get in touch.
And post-it notes, the invoices in the post.
Free post-it notes, if
But also,
only.
tell us what your favourite stationery is and how do you organise your dreams? Because actually, you
Yeah.
can come up with big goals like conquer the world or whatever it might be. But how do you break it down? How do you track
Yeah.
it? Because the
Yeah.
vision board idea is like this sort of big broad brush thing, and it is vision. It's a visual thing. It helps to have pictures. But then how do you set your tasks so that you're incrementally working toward that thing? Something like task batching is really good. You know, I've got this big thing I want to do an album. Actually, if I just have this big thing in the brain, then I'm never going to start. It's too big to start. But if I say, right, every Monday night, I'm going to sit down with a guitar
Love
and
it.
write
Yeah.
a song and just commit to one day night, whether it's a crappy day or a good day, rule of thirds. And I just chip away, give it some time, look back on the path that's been watered and it's full of flowers, you know? So then the
Yeah.
big
Yeah, I
vision
love it.
becomes something that you've worked incrementally towards, and then you can celebrate your wins. I mean, we've just sewn this one up. It's much
Yeah.
easier to talk about than actually do, because what we're not
Of
talking
course
about
it
here
is.
is discipline,
Of course it is.
which is an
But I
awful
think
lesson, you know,
yeah.
school
I think
making.
task batching is a really good idea. That works for me as well. You know,
Yeah.
rather than saying I've got to do it every day, I've got to do this by the end of the month. You know, that really works for me. But I think, you know, as we wrap this episode up, I think it'd be really interesting to hear from the listeners. You know, what works for you, because sharing this information is really useful to everybody. I want to hear how do you your reinvention or your, you know, things that you want to achieve, or whether that's big, medium, small, how does it work for you? Because it's what works for you. So don't follow, compare what works for you. And we have other episodes that kind of talk to that. It's never too late. So please let us know so that we can embrace that in other episodes.
Yeah, and indeed, you know, I think one of our visions for starting this podcast is to create community of sharing good
Definitely.
ideas, good tips. Not saying we know it all, we're wanting to start the conversation. So please do comment,
Absolutely.
like, subscribe and share. That's what I understand people on YouTube say. Like, really, really support the
Brilliant.
channel.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. Please do, everyone. We want to hear from you.
Yeah.
So we will see you next week as we move through January and 2025.
Yeah.
Thanks for
Take care
listening.
now, everyone.
Take care. Bye-bye.